The flight attendant ripped the ticket in half, smiled at the 12-year-old black boy, and said 6 words that would end her career within hours. "Find another way home, little troublemaker." Sunday, 2:15 p.m. O'Hare International Airport hummed with the controlled chaos of weekend travel. Outside Gate C-22, the Skyline Airways Premium Lounge stood apart from the ordinary terminal bustle, a sanctuary of hushed conversations and understated luxury. Butter-soft leather chairs in deep navy blue curved around polished mahogany tables. The lighting, warm and indirect, cast a golden glow that made even exhausted travelers look refreshed. Crystal decanters caught the light near a selection of premium refreshments that no one in economy class would ever see. In the quietest corner of this exclusive space sat Marcus Wilson. At 12 years old, he seemed almost too small for the oversized leather armchair that enveloped him. His posture was perfect. Spine straight, shoulders back, hands folded neatly over the National Junior Science Competition medal that hung around his neck. His crisp button-down shirt and pressed khakis made him look like a miniature executive. Only his eyes, darting occasionally toward the departure board, betrayed his nervousness. This was Marcus's first solo flight. The unaccompanied minor badge clipped to his lapel caught the light each time he shifted position. He'd earned this trip through brilliance and determination. His hydrogen fuel cell project had won first place nationally, and his father had promised to meet him in New York for a weekend celebration at the Museum of Science and Innovation. At the lounge entrance, Karen Reynolds stood with her perfectly manicured fingernails tapping against the counter. 15 years at Skyline Airways had hardened her smile into something that never quite reached her eyes. Her uniform, navy blazer with silver wings pinned precisely at the lapel, was immaculate. Her colleagues knew her reputation. Karen didn't bend rules, not for anyone. Her gaze swept across the lounge, cataloging passengers with practiced efficiency until she paused at Marcus. Her eyebrows inched upward as she noticed the first-class boarding pass in his hand. She whispered something to the gate agent beside her, who glanced up and shrugged. Karen's heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she approached. "Excuse me, young man, that appears to be a first-class boarding pass." Marcus looked up, his expression carefully neutral. "Yes, ma'am." "Are you sure you're at the correct gate?" Her tone suggested he couldn't possibly be. "Yes, ma'am. Skyline Airways Flight 1382 to JFK. Boarding at 2:30 p.m. His voice was clear and confident, despite her skepticism. Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. "And you're traveling alone? With a first-class ticket?" Marcus reached into his messenger bag and produced a folder of documents. "I'm an unaccompanied minor, ma'am. All my paperwork is in order. My father arranged everything." A businessman in a nearby seat glanced up from his laptop, his attention caught by the exchange. A woman with silver-streaked hair lowered her magazine, watching over the rim of her reading glasses. Karen took the folder, flipping through the papers with increasing skepticism. "And who exactly is your father?" "Terrence Wilson, ma'am." Marcus said it without emphasis or expectation, as though it were any name. Karen handed the documents back with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well, these seem to be in order, but I'll need to verify a few things before boarding. First class is usually reserved for our regular customers." The silver-haired woman exchanged glances with the businessman. The air in the premium lounge, once so comfortable, now felt charged with a subtle current of discomfort. Other passengers shifted in their seats, pretending not to listen while absorbing every word. Marcus simply nodded and said, "I understand, ma'am. I'm happy to provide any additional information you need." The boarding announcement chimed, cutting through the tension. Gate C-22 was now preparing for priority boarding. First class, diamond status members, and passengers needing special assistance. The stage was set, the players were in position, and no one in that premium lounge could have predicted what would unfold in the next 45 minutes. Diamond status and first-class passengers may now board. The announcement floated through the premium lounge, and Marcus Wilson stood, gathering his belongings with careful precision. His unaccompanied minor badge granted him priority boarding alongside the business executives and frequent flyers who barely glanced his way. The jet bridge felt like a transition point. From the cold scrutiny of Karen Reynolds to the promised comfort of first class. Marcus stepped into the aircraft, where the cabin's atmosphere enveloped him immediately. The air carried notes of vanilla and citrus from Skyline's signature scent system. Recessed lighting created pools of warmth against the cream and navy interior. The sound dampening was so effective that even the roar of nearby aircraft faded to a gentle hum. Seat 3A waited for him, a cocoon of privacy by the window, with buttery leather upholstery and enough space for a grown man to stretch his legs. Marcus slid into his seat, placing his messenger bag precisely under the seat in front of him. His science medal went into the side pocket, within easy reach. "Welcome aboard, sir." A flight attendant with a name tag reading Michael offered Marcus a warm smile. "May I bring you something to drink before takeoff?" "Water, please. No ice." Marcus's voice was soft but clear. Michael nodded with the same respect he'd shown the CEO in 1A. "Absolutely. Let me know if you need anything else." Karen Reynolds appeared at the cabin divider, her expression tightening as she spotted Marcus. While Michael delivered pre-departure beverages with easy charm, Karen moved through her tasks with mechanical efficiency, avoiding eye contact with passengers unless absolutely necessary. The overhead compartment above Marcus remained open. His carry-on suitcase, a compact navy blue hardshell, was still beside his seat. At 12, he wasn't quite tall enough to reach the bin comfortably. He caught Karen's attention with a raised hand. "Excuse me, ma'am. Could you help me with my suitcase, please?" Karen glanced at him, then at his luggage. "You should have checked that. First class isn't for storage." The gate agent said it was regulation size for the overhead compartment, Marcus explained. "I have all my competition materials inside." "This isn't a school bus," Karen replied. "First-class passengers typically know the proper procedures." From across the aisle, a woman in a crisp charcoal suit looked up from her tablet. Sandra Chen, according to the email she'd been drafting, was Chief Marketing Officer for a Fortune 500 company. Her frequent flyer status was evident in how comfortably she occupied her space. "I'm sure we can accommodate the young man's bag," Sandra said, her tone pleasant but firm. "It's clearly within size limits." Karen's smile tightened. "I'll need to see his boarding documents again. There seems to be some confusion." Without hesitation, Marcus produced his folder, handing over his boarding pass and unaccompanied minor form. "Here you are, ma'am." Karen examined the documents, flipping pages with increasing force. "This paperwork is insufficient." "That's standard Skyline Airways documentation," Sandra noted, no longer pretending to focus on her tablet. "I fly this route weekly." Other passengers were watching now. Michael paused his pre-flight preparations, sensing the tension. "I need to verify this boarding pass," Karen announced, holding up Marcus's ticket. "There are protocols for seating assignments, especially for unaccompanied minors." "My father arranged," Marcus began. The sound silenced the cabin, the unmistakable rip of cardstock tearing. Karen's fingers had split the boarding pass directly down the middle, the two halves now dangling from her hands. "Find another way home, little troublemaker." Her voice carried just enough to reach nearby rows. Marcus froze. His eyes widened, his small hands gripping the armrest so tightly his knuckles blanched. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He simply stared at the torn pieces of his ticket with stunned disbelief. The first-class cabin fell into a shocked silence. A passenger in 2C lowered his newspaper. The couple in 4D and 4E exchanged horrified glances. Michael, the other flight attendant, stood paralyzed with a pot of coffee suspended mid-pour. Marcus swallowed hard, blinking rapidly. His composure in the face of such blatant hostility made the moment even more heartbreaking. The click of a phone camera broke the silence, followed by another. A passenger in 2B had begun recording. The man beside him followed suit. Sandra Chen unbuckled her seatbelt and stood, her 5'4" frame somehow filling the cabin. "I just witnessed something unacceptable," she declared, her voice steady and clear. "This child has done nothing wrong, and his valid ticket has been deliberately destroyed by a Skyline Airways employee." Karen's expression flickered between defiance and the first hint of concern as phones continued to emerge from pockets and purses, their lenses focused directly on her. Sandra Chen's thumb moved with purpose across her phone screen. "I'm going live on Justice now," she announced to no one in particular. The app connected, and her face appeared in frame with the first-class cabin visible behind her. "I'm watching discrimination happen in real time on Skyline Airways Flight 1382, she began, her voice steady. A flight attendant just deliberately destroyed a black child's valid boarding pass. The viewer count ticked up, 78, 124, 189. Across the cabin, a retired teacher in 5C positioned her phone to capture Karen's face. The businessman in 2D filmed from above. The college student in 4B recorded from the aisle. Within minutes, the incident was being documented from 6 different angles, creating a comprehensive visual record that would become impossible to dispute. The head flight attendant, a man named Thomas with silver temples and a captain's stripes on his sleeve, hurried forward. "What's happening here?" he asked, looking between Karen and Marcus. "This minor attempted to board first class without proper authorization," Karen replied, holding up the torn ticket. He became disruptive when questioned. "That's absolutely false," Sandra interrupted, her live stream now at 457 viewers. "This young man has been nothing but polite. She tore his valid ticket in half and told him to find another way home." "I witnessed the same," confirmed the executive from 1B. "The boy did nothing wrong." "He showed proper documentation twice," added another passenger. Thomas's expression darkened as he assessed the situation and the growing number of recording devices. He whispered something to Karen, whose face flushed red. Sandra narrated events for her rapidly growing audience, now reaching 1,226 viewers. The cabin crew appears to be discussing the situation. Multiple passengers have contradicted the flight attendant's claims. Thomas turned to Marcus with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Young man, we need to sort this out at the gate. Would you please come with me while we clarify your documentation?" Marcus stood with quiet dignity, shoulders back, chin level. The science medal glinted against his shirt as he gathered his messenger bag. "The child is being removed from the plane," Sandra reported to her now 1,532 viewers, despite having done nothing wrong. The walk down the aisle became a gauntlet of sympathetic glances and recording phones. Marcus kept his eyes forward, his expression neutral despite the public humiliation. Behind him, Thomas guided with a light touch to the shoulder. Behind Thomas, Karen followed with a barely concealed expression of triumph. At gate C22, the atmosphere crackled with tension. The gate manager, a woman with a platinum bob and a name tag reading Diane, reviewed the torn ticket pieces and unaccompanied minor paperwork with increasing concern. "Everything appears to be in order," she said slowly, glancing between the documents and Marcus. "The ticket was properly issued. The unaccompanied minor form is complete." Karen stood in the aircraft doorway, arms crossed, watching the proceedings with obvious satisfaction. Sandra's live stream had become a phenomenon. The viewer count passed 3,000 as comments flooded the screen. "This is outrageous. That flight attendant needs to be fired immediately. Why is no one helping this child? This is a textbook case of flying while black." The Justice Now algorithm pushed the stream to more viewers as engagement metrics soared. Local Chicago users began sharing with the hashtag Skyline Shame, which started climbing trending charts in Illinois. Through it all, Marcus maintained remarkable composure until a subtle shift occurred. His shoulders dropped slightly, his lower lip trembled once before he caught it between his teeth. "May I call my father, please?" he asked Diane, his voice finally betraying his youth. "Of course," Diane replied, handing him her company phone. "Do you know his number?" Marcus nodded, dialing with steady fingers, his gaze never leaving Karen's face in the jet bridge doorway. The phone connected, and Marcus's posture transformed subtly, spine straightening, chin lifting. "Dad, it's Marcus. I'm at gate C22. There's been an incident." He listened for a moment, then handed the phone to Diane. "My father would like to speak with you." Diane pressed the phone to her ear, her expression shifting from professional concern to dawning recognition. The color drained from her face like water down a drain. "Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Wilson, I understand completely." Her voice had changed, the authoritative airport manager replaced by someone desperate to please. "No, sir. Absolutely unacceptable. Yes, sir. Immediately." Her eyes darted toward Karen, who still watched from the jet bridge doorway with satisfied detachment. Diane's hand trembled visibly as she returned the phone to Marcus, her fingers barely able to maintain their grip on the device. "Thank you for your patience, Mr. Wilson," she said to Marcus, suddenly treating the 12-year-old with the deference typically reserved for visiting dignitaries. She leaned toward her radio, pressing the call button with urgency. "Code executive. Gate C22. This is not a drill. Repeat, code executive. This is not a drill." The effect was immediate and electric. Security personnel materialized as if from thin air. The gate agents straightened their posture. A supervisor appeared from a nearby office, adjusting his tie as he speed-walked toward them. Karen's expression transitioned from smug satisfaction to growing confusion. Her arms uncrossed slowly as she registered the activity suddenly swarming around gate C22. The digital clock above the gate flashed 2:47 p.m., exactly 32 minutes since Karen had torn the boarding pass in half. Sandra Chen's livestream continued, her commentary providing context for the 8,127 viewers now watching events unfold. "Something's happening," she narrated. "Airport staff are suddenly treating this situation with extreme urgency." The comment section exploded with demands. "What airline is this? Name them. Who's the manager? We need answers. That flight attendant needs to be fired." The elevator doors at the end of the terminal slid open, revealing a man in his 50s wearing an impeccable suit with the Skyline Airways executive pin on his lapel. He moved with controlled haste, his expression grim. "Mr. Lawson, VP of Customer Experience," Diane announced to Marcus, her voice pitched slightly higher than normal. "Marcus," Lawson said, slightly out of breath as he reached them. "On behalf of Skyline Airways, I want to extend our deepest and most sincere apologies for this inexcusable incident." He knelt down, meeting Marcus at eye level, a gesture of genuine respect rather than condescension. "Your father and I have worked together for 15 years. What happened today reflects none of the values Skyline stands for." Karen, still watching from the jet bridge, was beckoned forward by a security officer. She approached with visible reluctance, her earlier confidence evaporating with each step. "What's happening?" she demanded. This minor attempted to board without proper. "Karen," Diane cut her off, her voice low but intense. "That's Terrence Wilson's son." Karen's forehead creased. "Who is Terrence Wilson?" "Mr. Lawson turned slowly, his expression a mixture of disbelief and cold fury. "Terrence Wilson is the CEO and majority shareholder of Skyline Airways." The revelation landed like a physical blow. Karen's face went slack, her mouth opening and closing without producing sound. Her eyes darted to Marcus, seeing him, truly seeing him for the first time. That's impossible," she stammered. "I was just following procedure." "Were you following procedure when you tore his valid boarding pass in half?" Sandra Chen stepped forward, her phone still broadcasting. "Or when you called him a little troublemaker?" Lawson gestured to a nearby gate agent, who produced a tablet. With a few taps, Sandra's video began playing. Crystal clear footage of Karen deliberately destroying the ticket and dismissing Marcus. "I have 6 other passengers who recorded the same thing," Sandra added. Karen's defense crumbled. "He didn't look like he belonged in first class. How was I supposed to know?" "That's precisely the problem," Lawson interrupted. "Your job isn't to decide who looks like they belong. Your job is to treat every passenger with respect." Throughout this exchange, Marcus stood quietly, his eyes taking in everything. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a calm wisdom that silenced everyone. "My father always says that character is revealed in how you treat people when you think no one is watching." The digital clock above the gate showed 3:15 p.m. Outside the airport bubble, Skyline shame had exploded across social media platforms, trending nationally with over 15,000 people watching Sandra's live stream. Justice Now's algorithm had pushed the content to news organizations who were already dispatching reporters to O'Hare. What had begun as one employee's prejudice had transformed into a corporate crisis, unfolding in real time, broadcast to the world. 2 security officers flanked Karen, their expressions professionally neutral as they guided her away from the gate. "This is absurd," Karen protested, her voice rising with each step. "I've worked for Skyline for 15 years. You can't treat me like this." Mr. Lawson's reply was measured but firm. "Your employment status is now under review. Please surrender your credentials and badge." Karen's fingers clutched her employee ID as if it were a lifeline. When she finally relinquished it, her hand shook. The security officers resumed their escort, leading her toward the administrative offices. The rhythmic click of her heels against the terminal floor grew fainter with distance, each step marking the disintegration of her career. Sandra captured the moment for her audience. "We're witnessing accountability in real time, folks. The employee who discriminated against this child is being removed from the premises." The viewer count ticked steadily upward: 23,457, 24,105, 25,298. The airport director himself appeared next, a rarity outside of presidential visits or security emergencies. His tailored suit and authoritative presence parted the curious onlookers who had gathered near the gate. "Mr. Wilson," he addressed Marcus with genuine respect, "we'd like to offer you access to our executive suite while we prepare a new aircraft for your journey. The lounge has refreshments, entertainment, and absolute privacy." Marcus adjusted his messenger bag strap. "Thank you, sir, but I'd just like to get to my destination as scheduled, please. My father is waiting." The director nodded, clearly impressed by the 12-year-old's composure. "Of course, we have a new flight crew preparing now. The captain would like to speak with you." A woman in a pilot's uniform approached, Captain Alice Meadows, according to her nameplate. Her handshake was firm, her apology concise. "What happened today violated everything we stand for at Skyline," she told Marcus. "My crew and I will ensure your journey to New York is comfortable and respectful." Behind them, gate agents worked with swift efficiency, printing new boarding passes, updating the manifest, and preparing for reboarding. The digital screens updated with a new departure time: 4 p.m. Sandra's live stream continued, her commentary providing context for the now 28,743 viewers. Corporate statements began appearing in the Justice Now comment section as Skyline's PR team scrambled to address the situation. At 3:45 p.m., reboarding commenced. This time, when Marcus walked down the jet bridge, he was escorted by Mr. Lawson himself. The passengers who had witnessed the original incident nodded respectfully as Marcus passed. New faces studied him with curious glances, having heard whispers about why their flight was delayed. "That's him, the CEO's son. Did you see the video? That flight attendant actually tore his ticket. I heard she's being terminated on the spot." The new cabin crew demonstrated flawless professionalism. The head flight attendant personally stowed Marcus's carry-on in the overhead compartment. The first-class cabin, so recently a site of humiliation, transformed into a space of dignified service. Sandra ended her live stream as the cabin doors closed, promising her 37,284 viewers an update upon landing. "This story isn't over," she said before signing off. "This is about more than one incident or one child." At precisely 4:05 p.m., 90 minutes behind schedule, Skyline Airways Flight 1382 lifted into the Chicago sky. 3 hours later, as evening settled over New York, Marcus stepped into JFK's Terminal 4. Standing at the gate, apart from the waiting crowd, stood Terrence Wilson. 6'2", impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, he carried himself with the quiet authority of someone accustomed to command. When he spotted Marcus, his carefully maintained composure softened. 3 long strides brought him to his son. No words were exchanged, just a fierce embrace that spoke volumes. "I'm sorry this happened to you," Terrence finally said, his voice low enough that only Marcus could hear. "Now, let's make sure it never happens to anyone else." The Skyline Airways headquarters gleamed in morning light as news crews assembled in the main atrium. 1 week after the incident, journalists from every major network positioned their cameras toward the podium bearing the company logo. The air buzzed with speculation about the unprecedented press conference called by CEO Terrence Wilson himself. At precisely 10 a.m., Terrence entered, flanked by his executive team. His presence commanded immediate attention, not through volume or dramatics, but through quiet authority. Marcus stood slightly behind him, poised and observant as ever. "Good morning," Terrence began, his voice resonant through the microphones. "I appear before you today not primarily as the chief executive officer of Skyline Airways, but as a father whose child faced discrimination aboard one of our aircraft." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle. "What happened to my son happens to people of color every day. The difference is not everyone's father owns the airline. The statement hung in the air, honest and unflinching. No corporate deflection, no carefully crafted PR language. This incident represents not just an individual failure, but a systemic one. When any passenger faces discrimination, we have failed as a company and as an industry. Terrence gestured toward a digital display behind him, which illuminated with the words, "The Marcus Protocol." Today, Skyline Airways is implementing comprehensive reforms designed to transform how we approach service, inclusion, and accountability. He outlined the 4 pillars of the protocol. First, mandatory anti-bias training for all 32,000 Skyline employees, from baggage handlers to executives. Not cursory online modules, but in-depth, evidence-based programs led by experts in the field. Second, third-party auditing of customer interactions through regular blind testing by independent evaluators representing diverse backgrounds. Third, an anonymous reporting system accessible via the Skyline app, website, and in-flight materials, allowing passengers to document discriminatory experiences in real time. Fourth, a commitment to transparency through quarterly public reports detailing incidents, responses, and ongoing improvements. Additionally, Terrence continued, Skyline Airways is investing $25 million in industry-wide diversity initiatives, including scholarships for underrepresented groups pursuing aviation careers and research into creating more equitable travel experiences. The cameras clicked continuously as Terrence spoke. The business reporters and attendants recognized this wasn't merely damage control. It was a fundamental reimagining of corporate accountability. 3 days later, Karen Reynolds faced the public through a written statement released by her attorney. I never thought of myself as prejudiced, but my actions that day showed otherwise. Watching the videos of my interaction with Marcus Wilson forced me to confront uncomfortable truths about my assumptions and behaviors. I am deeply sorry for the pain I caused. The statement continued. While my employment with Skyline Airways has ended, I am committed to growth through the anti-bias training program I've voluntarily entered. I hope my experience serves as a catalyst for others to examine their own hidden biases. This nuanced response, neither seeking absolution nor surrendering to permanent vilification, became part of the broader conversation about accountability and growth. Aviation industry publications noted that Karen had agreed to complete extensive bias training before applying for any future position in the travel sector. The ripples extended beyond Skyline Airways. Within 2 weeks, Delta announced its own passenger protection protocols. United followed 3 days later. American Airlines convened a special board meeting to address competitive disadvantage in inclusive customer service. The Department of Transportation launched a formal investigation into discrimination in commercial air travel, requesting data from all major carriers about passenger removal incidents categorized by race, gender, and other demographics. Congressional representatives from the Transportation Committee scheduled hearings titled Flying While Black, Examining Discrimination in Air Travel. Their press release specifically cited the Marcus Wilson incident as a revealing case study in both the persistence of bias and the potential for meaningful reform. Marcus received a formal invitation to testify, his first public speaking opportunity since the incident. Coaching him the night before, Terrence emphasized authenticity over performance. Just tell your story, he advised. Your experience matters. Marcus's testimony, measured, articulate, and devoid of melodrama, captivated the committee and the public. His final statement became the hearing's defining moment. I didn't choose to become the face of this issue. But now that I am, I want to use this platform to ensure that no other child has to feel what I felt that day. The confusion, the shame, the sense that something fundamental about me was wrong. The Marcus Protocol isn't about punishing anyone. It's about building systems where everyone is treated with dignity, regardless of how they look or who their parents might be. The aviation industry, notoriously resistant to external regulation, found itself at a crossroads. Consumer advocacy groups reported that mentions of racial discrimination in airline reviews decreased by 37% in the months following the implementation of these new protocols, suggesting that meaningful change was possible when accountability systems were properly designed. Perhaps most significantly, Terrence Wilson established the Skyline Foundation for Aviation Equity, creating pathways for students from underrepresented communities to enter the field. The foundation's first initiative, a full scholarship program for aspiring pilots, flight attendants, and aviation executives, received over 3,000 applications in its inaugural year. 6 months later, Marcus Wilson stood behind a podium at the National Youth Leadership Conference in Washington, D.C. The audience, 300 students from across the country, listened in rapt attention as this now famous 13-year-old spoke with remarkable clarity. "People often ask how I stayed so calm that day," Marcus said, his voice carrying throughout the hall. "The truth is I wasn't calm inside. I was hurt, confused, and angry. But my father taught me something important. The most powerful response isn't anger, it's excellence and accountability." The students nodded, many taking notes. Marcus had become an unexpected role model, not because of what happened to him, but because of how he had transformed that moment into a movement. When you face discrimination, your dignity is your greatest weapon. Hold on to it. It's the one thing no one can take from you unless you surrender it. In the front row, Terrence Wilson watched his son with quiet pride. The incident that could have defined Marcus as a victim had instead revealed him as a leader. The Wilson Transportation Equity Foundation had launched 2 months earlier with a clear mission, creating pathways for underrepresented groups in all aspects of the transportation industry. Its first initiative, a comprehensive training program for diverse aviation professionals, had already accepted 50 candidates from backgrounds historically excluded from the field. Marcus introduced 4 scholarship recipients, who joined him on stage. Each shared their story. Amara, whose dream of becoming a pilot began when she was 8. Darius, a former military mechanic transitioning to commercial aviation. Elena, pursuing airport management after working as a gate agent for 15 years. And Jamal, whose passion for aeronautical engineering had previously seemed unattainable due to financial barriers. "These are the faces of aviation's future," Marcus said, and the data shows we're already making progress. Behind him, a screen displayed the metrics. Customer satisfaction scores across participating airlines had improved by 28%. Discrimination complaints had decreased by 47%. Employee retention rates had increased by 22%. The final speaker of the day provided the most unexpected connection to Marcus's story. Sandra Chen, the marketing executive whose live stream had captured the original incident, stepped to the podium wearing a Skyline Airways executive badge. "When I started recording that day, I was just trying to help one child," she explained. "Now we're helping transform an industry." Sandra had left her corporate marketing position to become Skyline Airways' first chief diversity officer, bringing her business acumen to the company's inclusion initiatives. "Sometimes the most meaningful career paths find you when you're simply doing what's right," she said. Later that evening, in the quiet of their hotel suite, Marcus sat beside his father reviewing the day's events. "You know what I'm most proud of?" Terrence asked. "The foundation?" Marcus guessed. "No," Terrence shook his head. "I'm proud that this experience didn't harden your heart. It would have been easy to let anger define you." Marcus considered this. "I think about her sometimes. Karen, I wonder if she's learning, changing." "That compassion," Terrence said, placing his hand on his son's shoulder, "is what makes you exceptional. Not your science awards or your speeches. Your ability to see humanity, even in people who failed to see it in you." They sat together in comfortable silence, father and son, their bond strengthened through adversity. A private moment of connection that no camera would capture, but that would shape both their lives more profoundly than any public achievement. 1 year after the incident, Skyline Airways stands transformed. The quarterly transparency report released last week shows the airline leading the industry in customer satisfaction across all demographics. Internal metrics tell an even more compelling story. Diversity hiring has increased 37% across all positions, while discrimination complaints have plummeted by 82%. The Federal Aviation Administration has adopted modified versions of the Marcus Protocol for implementation across all U.S. carriers. Transportation Secretary Jameson recently cited it as the gold standard for equitable customer service in the transportation sector. The changes extend beyond policies to real-world interactions. When a black family was questioned about their first-class tickets on a competitor airline last month, the situation was handled with immediate respect, proper verification, and sincere apologies for any inconvenience, precisely as outlined in the protocol's guidelines. This story isn't just about an airline CEO's son. It's about what happens when systems are transformed to work for everyone. The power of Marcus's experience lies not in the privilege that ultimately protected him, but in how that privilege was leveraged to protect others who lack it. Have you, or someone you know, experienced discrimination while traveling? Your story matters. The patterns only become visible when we connect individual experiences to reveal the larger system at work. The most powerful tool against discrimination isn't silence, it's documentation and dignity. When we record injustice and respond with calm determination, we create the evidence needed for meaningful change. Share your thoughts in the comments. What other industries need this kind of accountability? Where else could transparency protocols transform customer experiences? If this story resonated with you, hit subscribe to join our community of changemakers. Share this video with someone who needs to understand the impact of everyday discrimination. Turn on notifications so you never miss our weekly investigations into stories that matter. Check the description for resources on knowing your rights while traveling. Sometimes the most powerful response to discrimination isn't a lawsuit or a viral video. It's systematic change that ensures no one else has to experience what Marcus did. This is Black Narratives, where we transform stories of injustice into blueprints for change.